let's start. I really want to start on time because I have to finish on time. So everyone can go to Seder. Basically, let's give a quick intro, which I want everyone to make sure that they hear. It's very pashut. Just first of all, straight to the point. Like I said, okay. Yeah, he's always worried about the battery going out. This means it's not good, I think. Am I right? It has to be not flashing.
It has to be what?
Oh, there. Oh, okay. Just pay attention. If you see it go off, then you have to turn. We have to go without a microphone. You understand? Just in the middle, if you see the blue light go off. Okay. All right. First of all, you have to know when it comes to questions with Chinuch. There's two quick disclaimers that you say. In the middle of a shiur, first of all, the shiur is only 45 minutes. It's okay, so it's short. We have 8 times. I'm being perfectly honest with you. The question was not to know what to say, it was to figure out what not to say. Okay, it was very hard for me to figure out, to put exactly the klalim that we need to hear. And 45 minutes is not a long time, especially when it's only 8 times. So basically, what I'm basically trying to say, and I know more people are going to come in and didn't hear this announcement, but Seder, is when it comes to questions, all questions that are involved in didn't understand what I said, if I didn't say clearly enough, repeat it, or not clear, if I didn't speak out clearly, no problem, okay? We'll answer those type of questions. But questions that have to do with, so what do I do if my son's making noise? Okay, it's a very big question. Those types of questions you cannot answer in a scenario, and almost any chinuch question can easily take up the whole shiur. So, at the mercy of everybody else and the person speaking over here, we bequeath that all questions be left till a further time. Okay? That it should be left for a further time till, I'll say afterwards, but we'll see how long we have afterwards. But we'll say, okay, that type of thing. We all know I'm a very available person. I'm not sitting hiding anywhere. So it's not such a big deal. Okay? That's first of all. Second of all, and also very important, some people might have heard of a few of the klalim, which I mentioned. I have to tell you, first of all, anything I might have spoken about in the past is very changed, very added to, and it's very different. That's first of all. Second of all, okay, you might recognize one or two ideas, concepts that might be repeated, but it's very altered. It's very different. Okay, that's first of all. Second of all, you have to remember, and this is very important. I say this especially to men, okay, because men have a big problem with this. We learn a sugya, we know the sugya, and Baruch Hashem, we know it. Why do I have to learn it again? I learned the sugya, why do you have to teach it to me again? So if a person heard chinuch, okay, I've been chinuched. Now I know chinuch, that's it, that's all it is. You don't realize this is the way of life. You have to experience this. You have to be able to see it as a whole. And it's not easy. Be'emet, I've gone over these things, besides the fact that helping other people or also hearing from I've heard from many different mechanchim, and also using it myself, it became a part of my being, of my essence. You understand? So I'm trying to say that that's the only way it's going to become like that. So even if you've heard a shiur or some of this stuff or any of this stuff or whatever it is, you have to realize that it's very important. It's what we call itpa'alut in the Rebbeinu of Yisrael. To repeat it over, to get it until you get it straight, until you're sholet, until you realize that you have the kelim. Until you have the kelim, it's very, very important to have the kelim, and therefore we repeat it and we put it in different perspectives. Okay? Now I'm going to give an introduction. Today, Bikaron is going to be a lot. The first half is going to be introduction. After that, we're going to speak out the Shorashim. Okay? So let me just give a couple words of introduction. That was what we call announcements. Okay? A couple words of introduction. We know that if someone wants to get smicha, someone wants to be a shochet, he wants to be a shochet, he has to go ahead and get smicha. You need to have a tu'udah. You can't stop do these things. If a person wants to drive a car, you have to get a license. Anything that a person wants to do in life, you want to be a doctor, you have to go through a lot of years of schooling in order to get a proper license, in order to deserve such a thing. It's very interesting to note that the one thing that we don't need to have a license for, it seems to just happen automatically, is being a parent. Kind of happens, ta-da, I'm a parent. I decided to marry a woman, suddenly I have a couple kids, and ta-da, I'm a parent. Who says you deserve to be a parent? No one. You don't have a tu'udah, you don't have a thing. Your rabbi didn't give you a signature to give you acknowledgement. How could it be? So one time I saw B'Shem Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky that he wrote, from here we see that there's a special siyata d'ishmaya, that there's a special yesod that every person has the capability of being a parent. If he wants to try to be mechanech, and if he wants to do it in the right way, then he has the capabilities of doing it. You have it in your kishkas. You have it in your kelim in order to be able to become a parent. So we have the capabilities. The only problem is, as we all know in the olden days, People had it naturally. You will never see a book about chinuch dated more than 30 to 40 years ago, right? That's the oldest book you will find about chinuch in general. There is a sefer called Chovet HaTalmidim, okay? Hachshavat HaVerchim. That's a little bit about chinuch. That's true. It's about 60, 70 years old. But B'ikaron, and all these chinuch ideas and concepts have only been barely fresh. And the question is why? What happens? Everybody has a different pirush. I'm not here to, to give solid, I have to be honest with you. Many mechanchim, and it's half right, half wrong, many mechanchim will go and will rip parents to pieces, okay? That's just the way it goes. It works well. Because when you rip parents to pieces, so then you know it's all your fault, it's not your kid's fault, and that's what it is. Once in a while, we might speak out a little bit, things like that. But B'ikaron, many people say, in the olden days, they used to love their children. Nowadays, we don't love them as much as you do. It's hard for me to buy it. The truth is, Yaakov himself says that. He says the love that they had was a true love, as opposed to what we have. Seder, whatever it is. I'm telling you from experience, not experience that I'm that old, but from experience that I'm a kind of what we call curious person. I went and asked around many people. Anybody I always see in their 80s or 90s, I go and I give them a skira ma'arechet. I mamish go and talk to them and ask them what was it like, what would it look like in those days, how was Europe back then. I'm also very into the Shoah, a little bit the Holocaust, and say I always like to ask people. And clearly, it doesn't necessarily seem to be that they love their children. It's clearly a different scenario. We are living in a different background. There's nothing to talk about. Technology and the world around us every year is advancing. It is too easy for a kid to get anything he wants, and we know that. Of course, the past 20 years is not. That's why our chinuch was not the same as our children. So what I'm trying to say is we need to learn these tactics. It's not as easy. A lot of times person only knows his chinuch from what you got from your parents, how you grew up. Godol shimusha limuda, right? To be mishamesh is bigger. So we learn from our parents. The problem is, I'm not saying the word useless, but it's almost not useful, okay? You can't take everything that you got from your parents and apply it to your children. Especially, here I am speaking in English. We all know that we grew up in Chutz La'aretz. All of us grew up overseas, one way or the other. If it's in the north, if it's in the east or the west. Okay, I don't know how many people from the east, but the south, right? Okay, it doesn't make a difference. But we all know, so we grew up as chutznikim, okay? From wherever we grew up. The mentalities are different, and you have to live to the mentalities. Good, Baruch Hashem, I'm very proud of everyone. You decided to move to this country, but you have to be able to acknowledge it. You don't have to take everything the way you grew up, and that's the way that's Torah Sinai. Things have to change, and you have to know the klalim, okay? These are very important rules, okay? That's that. Now next, I want to tell one more thing also. That you should know there's two different ways of teaching chinuch courses, okay? Chinuch courses. I'm going to translate this loosely, but it doesn't mean exactly. There's a little bit more like, if I could say, the women's style of doing it, and let's say the man's style. And that's not in any way a chauvinistic type of comment. That was my kavanah. But there's an idea that you can have tens and tens and tens of chinuch ideas in this. Why? Because it's a workshop. It's going back and forth. It's discussing. I have my things, and they discuss, and they go in what we say the pirtei pratim. They go into the details. How do you teach them how to walk? How do you potty train them? How do you teach them how to not answer back? How do you teach them? You get into all the details, all the pratim. And that, of course, can take years and years on end, which is fine. I'm not against it, especially if a woman is not working and she has time to be able to do that. But I think most of us, it's very hard for us to do that, first of all, and men don't work that way. Okay? The other way, the mahalach to do this, and this is what I've gotten from Rabbi Yaakov, and for those who are familiar with him, is to teach the klalim, the rules. The Shulchan Aruch, if you will, right? The rules, this is the klalim, this is the basic background, and you need to connect it. You need to relate it to the child, to your own specific scenario. Sometimes it's difficult. You need to have youths. You need to speak to someone. There's no question. But most of the time, I'll say the word 80%. Of course, that's a thing. Almost 80% of the time, most of these kalim, if you have them clear, if you're working with them, if you're thinking with them, I'm telling you, it can be applied to your children, and it works like a charm. And I'm not only telling for my children, to a certain extent, Baruch Hashem, all my kids are perfect, and this, right? Obviously, everybody has their dynamics, not just that, but it's I've seen from experience when I've spoken to many, many other people, okay? Baruch Hashem, I've been involved in many other people's chinuch scenarios, and I've seen that it does work very, very well. Now, kamuvan, dvarim pshutim, right? I'm not a professor with an MA who's going to sit there and say, and when you do this, everything will be good. We all know my job is the rabbinical job, and I'm here to tell you that everything is a Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? That's why we're here, right? We all know that everything is Hashem. Hashem gave us every matana, every present, every kid is there for a specific reason, okay? And we have to know that it is all 100% tefillah. Okay, some people say 99% tefillah, 1% your ishtadlut. It's true, it's bikaron true, it is true. But you should know that ishtadlut, you have to give it your 100%. Okay, even if you want to say it's 1%. It has to be a full ishtadlut that you have to know how to do it. When people are irresponsible, and this is what kills me, people are irresponsible, I sometimes say beautiful children and they get wasted. And they get wasted, they really end up on the street for absolutely no reason. Mamash bal tashlit. Because they don't know the word discipline, what it means to discipline. They mix up what chinuch is and what chinuch is not, which is what we're going to speak about today. And you see, it's such a chaval, because, and I'm saying this especially when I'm speaking to a group of men, and I can say this because I'm a man myself, we are pig-headed, okay? To a certain extent, we're pig-headed. Most men think they know everything, okay? To a certain extent, and especially when it comes to this chinuch, a lot of times you feel, my wife doesn't know what she's talking about, I know what I'm doing. Watch this, I come home, bam, bam, they're in bed. See, what is the problem? I understand. I know how to take care of this to a certain extent. Most of us feel like we know exactly what we're doing. I don't really have to go to a shiur. It doesn't matter. All this stuff is very, the expression in Yiddish, a viberish zach, right? It's a very woman type of thing to do. And unfortunately, it's like that. I have to be honest with you. I've heard, this is in the old times, I don't hear them anymore, but I remember, I even pointed out to my wife so many times, I remember probably 40 or 50 of these Rav Yaakovs in shiur. Literally, everyone, whenever you heard questions, it's always women. There's only women in the audience. Where's the men? It bothers me so much. Where are the men? And the truth is, it has a certain davon, because I think we won't blame ourselves, but I think there's somewhere that we will blame it. And I'm not putting it in any blame because they try our best, but the people who are mechanchim, okay? In other words, our rebbeim of our children. Sometimes you see in Beis Yaakov's, the women are a lot more experienced than the men, unfortunately. And I'm taking this as a lesson that we have to learn for ourselves, that even though we don't always do it, we have to push ourselves, we have to learn the klalim. It is not bittul Torah, it's something that we need to do. And we have to take it. Like I said, it doesn't mean you have to be there for 3-4 years and read every book on the planet, but it means that you have to get the tashtit, what it is, okay? That's what it is. And one last nekudah before we start the groundwork here is every parent to 2 children already knows that no 2 children are the same. Okay? We all know that every parent to 2 children, you already know that you're never going to have. Once you have 3 children, 3 dynamics, it's unbelievable. The differences in the children that we can see, and we all are very also familiar. I don't have to prove it to you. The difference in personalities, the difference way of thinking, whether they're smarter or this. One is a lot of pizzazz, and the other one's quieter and reserved to themselves, introverted. It's unbelievable that every child is this, which means that when you speak in chinuch, you don't speak in a shita. This is the system, and this is it. You don't speak with a shita, a system. You speak with a gisha, an approach. You deal with an approach. This is the approach, and this is the way to do it. But that gisha, that approach, needs to be applied to your own situation. It needs to be taken. Take the approaches, the ideas, the way we work. This is the ideas to think, to figure it out, and you have to apply it to yourself. Baruch Hashem. Hopefully, all of us here are paired. We have a partner to be able to do this with, right? We have a partner to do this with, and that's why you need to discuss it. You need to have meetings, literally at least once a week, even more than that. There's no reason why it should not be like that. I remember, we're going on Shidduchim. I don't know, whoever was going on Shidduchim, you're always discussing what, your Shabbos table is going to look like, what things are going to be like. You're always discussing all the things that you always wonder most of the time, you didn't even realize what you should be discussing with your wife as your children, and figuring out the children, the patterns. Things are always changing. It's always dynamic. It's a perfect word. The situation in the house is a very dynamic situation. It is always changing. It is never permanent. It is always changing. The ages are changing. The amount of kids are changing. The scenarios are always changing. Everything is a different thing. There's the bar mitzvah ages. There's wedding ages. There's teenager ages. There's the 8 or 9 year olds. There's the 3-year-olds. Every age, as we all know, has its own stars. People always wonder, what's the worst age? There is no worst age. They're all bad, right? Right? Just kidding, right? They're all the challenge. Everything's in Nisayon. Everything is there for the thing. Obviously, he's 2 years old. He's pulling things out of the cabinet. Please just let this be over already. And then he gets to 4 years old. He starts being chutzpahdik or talking back or something like that. Okay, just this age. Let's just pass by and that's it, right? Then they're already 7 or 8 years old and bringing home for every age. And then the teenager, you wish that he was back to be 2 years old again, right? Right? Every age has its own dynamic. It is constantly changing. This approach needs to be taken as a klal, as rules, and I apply it to my own situation. That's clear. There's no question. If you do it, and I told you, you have to know how to exercise it. It takes work. You're going to see there's certain exercise to do. But I'm telling you, I never promised, but I would, if I could, that it works. And I'm telling you it works. Chutz me the tefillah. Come on, you always have to daven. There's no question that everything starts with tefillah. Okay? That's the beginning and the start of everything. Okay? So let's start. Now there is a klal that we always start when we start with the groundwork of chinuch. Some people, I believe, might have heard of this, some people not. I'm putting it together, and you have to start with this because everything starts from here, the understanding. I'm going to speak with this background now, and it's going to spill over to the second shiur also, okay? That there's two facets to what we call chinuch, or how we're mechanech our children. Everybody has their own nusach. Rav Wolbe's nusach, some people, like I said, might have heard it, Zriya Ubinyan, planting and building. Some of us might be familiar with it. Could be. I'm going to expand on that a little bit. Okay? The same nusach I heard from Rav Yaakovson, but he never quoted Rav Wolbe. I'm sure he knew Rav Wolbe, but he used his own nusach. Is hafala and chinuch. Hafala means activation. Activation, a much more, if you could say, a derogatory word. He used a much more derogatory word. And chinuch, which is chinuch. Now there's no contradictions here. There is a slight difference between them. That's the truth, but I'm not going to get into that. It's not relevant. Okay? But hafala, activation, is building, is binyan, and chinuch is zriya, is planting. Okay, now I'm going to expand on this idea a little bit more, using my own mashalim and additions, and to show you what it works. Okay, let's start with zriya, okay? Zriya, which is the main thing that we're going to be speaking about the next 2 days, by the way. Zriya is planting. Now what happens when you plant a plant? It's something that you have to plant in the ground, a seed, you all know, it takes a certain amount of time. It has advantages and disadvantages when you plant a plant. What do you have to do? You have to tend to it and keep watching over it and checking up on it, making sure it's okay. Okay, so that's great. It's something that you need to do. But it's also a little bit annoying. It's annoying because how long does it take? Years and years to get this dumb tree to finally bear some fruit. You put in the seed until you finally get fruit. Orla has 3 years of process. Usually you don't have to worry about orla because it takes 3 years to some good fruits come out of it anyways. 3 years, the years of planting and tending to it and fixing the afar and making sure the sun is in the right place. And if you are of this shita, which is a true shita, to speak it in the tender and give it nice and warm compliments to the plant and everything like that, right? To make them feel good, right? Okay, seder. So there is such a thing. So it takes a long time to tend to the plant, and eventually you get peirot, literally, right? Eventually you get your fruits, right? But it takes a long time. It takes a long time. So it's a disadvantage because it takes a while. That's a disadvantage. But you know what? It's also a tremendous advantage. You know why? Because it's real. It grew itself. It tended to itself. It was able to grow from its own. It didn't take any something external to make it be. It was only you tending to it so that it can grow itself and become what it is. It will not change. It will only grow. It will only advance. A plant grows and it grows. Okay, and that's what it is. It's an absolute thing. We say in davening, Matzmiach Yeshua. When we talk about there's Bone Yerushalayim Binyan and there's Matzmiach Yeshua, which is growing. The Yeshua, the Geula, is a slow process. It's very hard. We're sitting here for 2,000 years. It's not so simple. It's taking a long time. But we all know when it comes, it's fantastic. It was something we earned, something we worked hard for, something that becomes part of us. It's part of our essence. That's what Zriya is. It takes a long process. It takes a long time. And sometimes it's uncomfortable and it takes work. But in the end of the day, the peirot are real peirot. They're amiti. They're something what it is. Now, there, of course, and again, I don't mean, don't worry, I won't do this to the women, but I like to be ma'ashim the men a lot. Some of us men become very impatient. We don't have time for these types of things, okay? We become very impatient. So sometimes you want to pull and tug to make it grow longer. We all know what happens when you pull at my son. Has been working for a few weeks. He bought one of these little plant smachim in a little pot outside, and he's been watering it in this, and it started growing. He showed me, Abba, look at this beautiful thing. It started growing with a few leaves until the 3-year-old came by inside, and she wanted to get a better look. Boop, up, she pulled it out, and that was it. And he was going ballistic. He was a good kid. He didn't scream at her, didn't get mad at her, but he was going. Here he was working so hard, and boop, he took it out. That's sometimes what we do also. We wanted to just hurry up, so we go, boop, and we just pull it out. And you uprooted it from the roots, and it's a mistake. Tending to a plant takes time. That's the mashal. Tending to a time takes time, takes patience, but the peirot are incredible. That's Zriya. Zriya parallels Chinuch, which, like I said, this, of course, if we're speaking the Chinuch course, is what we're going to be speaking about. Chinuch is a slow process. It is not a quick process. You will only understand this if you go to a shiur. I'm telling you because we're too into wanting fast results, especially in this day and age. Zriya is a slow process. If it's not coming slow, then you're probably not doing chinuch. Okay? It's a slow process. It doesn't have to be painstaking. Of course, it depends on the child. Some more pain and some less pain, right? But it takes a process, and you can't pull it out. You have to take the time. You have to tend to it. You have to give it its warm, loving care. You have to do what it needs, and eventually it grows. What is that? That's what we're going to speak about. But just a couple examples. This is what, when we say, we're giving a compliment, a machma'ah, or idud. Idud is from Lashon Od. Idud is the word for idud in English is to encouragement. Encouragement, that's a good word, right? Encouragement, okay? Idud to encourage. Encouragement is a slow process, and to hit in the right spot. I said we have to speak about where idud is. It doesn't help to stop, give blanket idud. It doesn't work to say, you're fantastic, you're great, I love you. Okay? I'm always very against anyone who knows me. I don't know, to a certain extent. I mean, this is what I mentioned the last times. But I'm not a big believer of when you call your child tzaddik. It's an absolute mistake. Because you can call him tzaddik from here to tomorrow, but that's his new name. So you can change Moshe to tzaddik. Do you accomplish that? That's not called idud anymore. You used up a name and you just kind of ruined the threshold. You don't have to call him tzaddik. When he does something of tzidkah, say, wow, you're a tzaddik. That's Seder Gomer. You give him a beautiful compliment. It's very nice. But you're not complimenting him if every time he eats his dinner, you call him a tzaddik. My kesher. A person has to pinpoint, find the right place to hit when he hits, and hit a bullseye. But again, it requires thinking. And sometimes we don't want to think. Okay, that's where it comes from. It requires a little bit of pre-planning to find the right spot, to see when he did something appropriate, and then give him the compliment. You can't give blanket compliments and say you're fantastic. You can do that once in a while. If he does something fantastic, you can say that. It's fine, but it has to be in the right spot. Otherwise, it's kind of wasteful. Okay, so idud, compliments, machma'ot, those are zriya. That's chinuch. It's slow. It's a slow and painstaking process sometimes. You won't see the results for a few months. And sometimes, depending on if you're dealing with a teenager that you're now transferring your mahalach of chinuch, and you have a 16-year-old that you've had problems with, and now you're transferring your mahalach of chinuch, trust me, it's not going to be a few months. I hope it works in a couple of years. Right? Like I said, go back to daven, see davening, right? But that's what you have to do. There's other examples. Parental example, which I would love to get to. I'm not sure if in Shiur I can get to it. Parental is a dugma ishit, okay? Classically, most mechanchim, the dugma ishit is everything that happens wrong in the house because your fault. Because you do this and you do that. It's not exactly what dugma ishit is. Dugma ishit is a very slow, subliminal message. That's what they are. Dugma ishit, when we're talking about parental example, are subliminal messages in the house. Your kids see what you prioritize. You don't have to do everything like your kids. You have a different bedtime from your kids, okay? And just because you have chocolates hiding in your thing, that's not so bad. Beseder, you have chocolates hiding in your back room, and Beseder, so your kids know you have chocolates hiding there. It's not the end of the world. That you're an adult and they're a child. There's no There's no equality in the house. Don't give me equality. The 8-year-old has a bedtime, and the 5-year-old has a bedtime. There's no equality in the house. It's an absolute American toad, okay? We know there's no equality in the house. That's fine. You're allowed to have differences. A parental example means what's the underlying message that's going in your house. You could sit and give musar schmoozing to your son about how important learning is, now this and this and that, blah, 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 blah. But if he sees that when you and him are talking, they're always talking about the money and the money and the money, this is what's important to us, and that's what's important to us, that's the message they're going to get. A perfect example, which I always think is this, and we don't even pay attention to this, so that's why I think it's a good example. You're eating dinner, eating supper, you came, it's a long day, you barely ate, you're so excited, your wife puts down a hot plate, and you start eating, you start having your first bite or second bite, and suddenly, and you always know this is the right time when they all come. Shh, never quiet, don't let them know we're here. They keep knocking, ringing the doorbell, okay, I'll just answer the door already. And then it's okay, please, okay, just okay, close your bed. Okay, you gave tzedakah to the guy, you gave him tzedakah. What did the kids say? You say, oh, my kid learned that I have to give tzedakah. You sure he learned that? He learned that you have to get rid of these nunnikim that come and bother you right when you're in the interruption of this, and it's not something of importance. You understand what I'm saying? It's not a question of, I do this. They see the facial expressions. They see the body language. They read you like a book better than we do. If you want to get a good psychologist, go to your kids. Forget the psychologist. Save a lot of money. Okay? They know how to read you like a book. They can see the underlying things that you're doing, and they can figure it out. What the messages you're doing, and this is exactly the word, subliminal messages. Those underlying messages that are going in the house that they see on a consistent basis. What's going on over there? What's passing by? Remember in the olden days when we were young, they tried these subliminal messages. That Baruch Hashem at least became illegal. There's a lot of other garbage that they still allow. But in the middle of a show, that they would put a message across the show. Very quick and very tiny that you don't even see, you don't even notice. but they noticed that it worked. He said, buy Clorox or whatever. Right? Buy Clorox or that. And suddenly people were finding themselves going and buying the product in the store. And they didn't know where it was coming from. But that became, Baruch Hashem, illegal. They found one thing to legalize. Okay? But that's what it is. That's what you're doing in the house. You're giving a subliminal message. You're trying to pass out messages here that they can pick up on. And they will see it. Okay? You can give Musar Shmuzim from here till tomorrow, but it's not useful until they see what they see. Okay? This is all Zriya. You understand? And one last example. I'll give one last example. Yeah. Okay. So switch out the microphone. Just turn off the microphone. It works, right? Yeah, okay, fine. One last example of Zriya. Again, so there's a number, but these are the main categories, is Tikshoret, a relationship with a child. Your relationship with your child is so incredibly important, and it's so underrated. People don't realize how important it is to have a proper sikha relating to your child. I understand with a 3-year-old it's not so easy to have, but once they're getting to 6 or 7, you can have a somewhat quasi-intelligent conversation with them. You could treat them like a mensch. When they come home and they're angry about some guy who was making fun of them, or treating them not nice, or ifriali, or metzikoti, and all these types of things, that's the time where you don't say, right? That's not the time where you immediately lash out at him. I hate him. I can't stand him. I can't stand him. We never hate any Jews. We have to be nice to all our Jews, and we don't hate anybody. I hate my teacher, right? That's a bigger extreme. And according to many mechanchim, that's also okay. You don't immediately disqualify them. Of course, you're not supposed to hate your Rebbe. Okay, you're not supposed to. How many of us did? Right? But you still end up. He comes immediately. You go, shut. Don't talk like that. You have to listen, equate to his. Yeah, understand what he's saying. Why? What happened? Let me hear what happened. This and that. Does it make sense? Are you sure that's the right thing? A lot of times you have to relate. Let him know, and that way he'll want to build a relationship. A great example of this. When I say this, right, some people say, look, it's not nice, I have to listen to every little thing. Imagine you come home, someone in shul was really bugging you, and you're really annoyed with him, and you come home and say, I can't stand this guy. You come home, okay, you don't worry about your lashon hara, I understand. I can't stand you come to your wife, and you tell her at dinner, I'm fed up with him, and this and your wife says to you, it's usher to hate people. You cannot do that. What would you do? You'd hate your wife also, no chas v'shalom, right? But you'd be very upset at your wife. This is not. I need some idud here. I need someone to speak to. Don't start telling me Musar. We'll speak about Musar later. I understand. I'll wait for the rabbi. Okay, that's it. You want her to relate to your situation, understand it. Try to understand, and then she can give you a little bit of Musar afterwards. But you want her to relate to your situation, even though you seem to be exaggerating. There's no difference between what we do and we want, and our kids want. It's just on a different threshold, a different scenario. You understand what I'm saying? What they need and what we need is not always the same. It's the same dynamic. It's just in a different level. You understand? Many times you're going to come home for very stupid reasons, what we call stupid. Okay, why is he upset? Because he took away my thing. He took away my thing. So a big deal. It doesn't bother us. But you understand, in their world, it's a big thing. The famous Rabbi Yisrael. Rabbi Yisrael says when a kid's ship sinks inside of the bath, it's the same thing as it's a Titanic, right? He says it's the same thing as your boat sinking. By him, it's the same thing. Everyone's in proportion. So you have to understand it in that equation. You have to be able to relate to it before you start downplaying. Don't immediately say, don't talk like that about your Rebbe. You could wait. I'm not saying eventually in the end of the conversation you won't say it. But let him know that you can connect, because this is a real important klal, and I will say this over and over again, okay? This is a real important klal. One of the main things that you want to have as your goals, which we're speaking about today, one of your main goals that you want to have is that relationship. Because, 6 and 7 and 8, they're all listening to you. And like I said, we're going to say this many times, I'm sure we know this. 14, and nowadays it's 12, maybe 11 even, right? Even the early days, they stop listening to you. Okay? Teenagers are independent. They think of the definition of a teenager is what? That he is his own atzmai person, and he's absolutely irresponsible. He really can't be responsible. He really doesn't have the kelim, the capabilities of being responsible, but he's positive that he knows everything. Right? That's the definition of a teenager in 3 words. Okay? That's what it is. So what happens? How do you stop that? Right? People come to the mechanech at 16 years old and go, he's really chutzpahdik, he's not listening to me and doing that. That's too late. I don't mean too late. You can still do things. But that's not, you have to start when he's 6 and build a relationship. So now when he's 15 and he is being independent and thinking for himself, he wants to go to you. He doesn't want to go to the friend in the class. He wants to go to you. You understand? The only way to do that is to build this kesher from 10 years ago. You have to build the kesher, and then he trusts his Abba, and he wants to go to his Abba also. Okay? He wants to go to his Abba, and he'll tell you, this is what I'm doing, and what should I do, and he'll relate to you. You're building on that relationship that you can get to there. This is called zriyah. This is called planting, which again is a slow process. You can't rush it, but it's something that needs to be done. Or in the words of the other mechanchim, chinuch. This is chinuch. This is what you come to a chinuch class about. This is what you're trying to do 99% of your day. This is the majority of your day. This is what you're trying to do. What's the other? Now let's see the other side of the fence. Okay, what's the other thing? It's called hafalah, which we said means activation. Or in the words of Rabbi, binyan, building. What happens when you build? Binyan is the mashal, hafalah is the nimshal. What is building? What does it mean when you're building something? When you build something, you take something external and you build. You take blocks and you build a building like this. Baruch Hashem, the shell of this building was built incredibly quickly. They were able to build a bridge and the shell very, very quickly. In total, it took a little bit longer. But the shell itself goes fairly fast, and it's bricks and mortar. That's what it is, and it moves quick, and you see results. That's the best thing about building. Is great because you get things on the spot. You do it, and you plant it. You put it there. You put one brick, another brick, and it's there. You have a structure. You hired people. You did it. In a few days, you can get a nice building, a nice block up, and you feel there it is. It's all there. It's fantastic, right? It's very good. There's only one slight problem. What's the problem? That's it. Zekol, there's nothing else. Whatever is it, this building is not going to automatically grow. Okay, it's not going to have. They made a roof. I know we're trying one day, right? But this building stays forever. That's what it is. That's A. And B, this whole malach is extremely external. It's an external way of working. There's nothing that changes in the thing itself. As long as you're fixing things on an external thing, it's external and it stays external. There's nothing internal about it. Nothing changing. Pnimi, nothing within you that is changing. It's all external, okay? But you feel great about it. It's so much easier to feel better about a binyan because you just see immediate results. I have a neighbor. We have a mechitza in order to block between the two things. We're both happy having mechitzas. We have no problems having mechitzas. The only difference is before he came, we had a long bush, one of these vines that goes around, which means you have to tend to it, you have to cut it here and this and that. When he moved in, he said, listen, I'm a New Yorker, okay, and I don't like all these things, okay? I like bricks and mortar. I like binyans. I don't know what trees are. I don't know what anything is. He wasn't interested. With Mitzidot, he would have cut down the whole thing, but he came second, so he can't. He couldn't do anything. So he said, look, you can keep it, just you take care of it, because I don't want. And his whole house is only extensions, bricks, mortars. There's not one piece of grass anywhere. It's a big chaser, not one piece of grass anywhere. Nothing to grow. Why? Because it's annoying. I have to tend to this grass. I have to tend to these trees. I have to tend to the vineyard. I have to keep cutting it, keep on. And the koch. I just want to make it. I want to see it, and I just want to stay and leave me alone. This is hafalah, okay? This is what we call not chinuch. It's called hafalah, activating a child. Now, is it bad or is it good? That's the question. Is it bad or is it good? Now, this could be a point of dispute, but like I said, we're going to define it in a very fine way towards the last shiur when we talk about discipline, okay? But hafalah activation usually is referring to punishing, okay? Punishing is hafalah because you get a quick answer. Remember what I told you about the man who walks into the house? The woman is sitting here trying to do this and this, but you give a punishment, finished, and that's it. He listens, at least at certain ages, right? And we know when the ages keep going, it's not going to necessarily work. It works temporarily, it works, but it works, and it's sometimes needed. It's what we call, this is my own nusach, it's an unnecessary evil, okay? It's something that we need to do sometimes, right? I'm sorry, not unnecessary, a necessary evil. It's something we need to do sometimes, and it works, but in the end of the day, it's external. It never becomes a part of the child. When you punish a child, he is not convinced that this is Torah Misinai. That's it. That's not what's going to get him. When you punish him to do something, that's not what it is. Like the kid, many Rebbeim like to give as a punishment to write 100 times this and that. You think that changes the kid? I'm not going to talk in class. Okay, that's it. Now he's never going to talk in class because he believes that it's incorrect to talk in class because he wrote 100 times. So it reminds me of a child that he came back home and his mother knew he was a Shovavi kid. He was smiling and then she goes, what happened? He said, the Rebbe gave me a punishment. Ooh, she gave me a punishment. Why are you smiling? Because he told me I should write 100 times Ani lo yedaber b'kita. So he says, why are you smiling? He said, because I wrote Ani ken yedaber b'kita. Ha ha ha, right? He said, and he did write Ani ken yedaber. There's no change in the person. He does what he needs to do because he's being punished and he has to do it. But a punishment doesn't affect a person. You need to punish sometimes. In an ideal house, you won't need to punish. Not every kid needs to be punished. I'm not telling you have to. But sometimes we have to bump into a punishment. But punishments are what we call fast and few. They should not be on a consistent basis. I compare it to taxes. Their taxes, some things you have to do, but you never overpay your taxes. No one ever cheats on their taxes the other way. Okay, I'll pay a few extra bucks. Mr. Uncle Sam deserves it, right? Who's ever right? You get mushug. If anything, you try to cut corners. Okay? Punishments are something necessary that needs to be done. It's something that needs to be done in certain situations when things are out of hand. But at the same time, it has to be very limited, because you should know the more that you punish, the more things are out of control. That means they're not in control. When things are in control, there's no real need for a punishment. A real mechanech, and it's true, it can be done. I'm telling you it's true, and it can be done even with good kids. Sometimes you have to lower the par. A real mechanech, when a kid does something wrong, you cut him with his hand in the cookie jar, you can give him a disappointed look. And he'll just stop, and he won't want to do it. That's a person who has a kesher with his child. And that's also a punishment. Punishments are not only when I smack him on the head or when I ground him. Punishments are any negative behavior. Okay? Any negative behavior. When you scream is a punishment, which is also fast and few. It should not be kol azman. It should be to a certain extent limited. Okay? Punishments are also something that anything that's unfortunate. Now this I'll put more in the woman category. Also when you whine to the child, okay? I'm sure we don't whine to our children, right? But also whining to a certain extent is punishment. I'm so fed up with you. Stop! Right? That's called a punishment. It's a negative connection, assessment. It's put into the punishment category. Of course, calling names, which we'll speak about later, Zat Hashem, of course, is should never be done, but that's also in the category of a punishment. Okay? Any types of complaints, crying, etc., all that is called punishment. Any type of negative connotations is already in the category of punishment. It's called hafala, activating. Sometimes it says, if the kid is touching the stove, and he's got a problem touching the stove, punish him. I give you full reshut, no problem. You have to do it. The kid has a problem running across Dolev, do something about it. No, you don't stop and say, well, let's talk about it at the Shabbos table, and we'll discuss what happens when you run across. No, you don't wait for that. Then you have to give him a punishment, you have to ground him, you have to do whatever you can to stop him. But don't think you changed the child. That doesn't mean you changed him. Now he's different. You didn't change his beliefs. It's like a building. You built something, it's there, and this, but you didn't do something pnimi in the etzem nefesh of the child. You didn't do anything internal into the child itself. You following what I'm saying? That's a very big difference what it is. It's a business. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. It's a little bit of a thing. That's one type of afalah. There's a second example of afalah. Just give a quick, in the introduction we mentioned, questions are okay for anything if you don't understand what I said. No, but did I say something not clear? Which one?
The first example.
No, this punishment. Yeah, punishment. Punishment was that. A second example of hafalah, and this I'm mentioning because this could raise a little bit more eyebrows. You'd be more surprised because hafalah, this activating the child, sounds negative, right? Binyan is negative. It is negative, and it shouldn't always be done, but it needs to be done sometimes. A second example of activating, which is more surprising to parents, but it is also true, is giving prizes. Okay? So it's a little bit about me, give me mitzvah chart. Now I will tell you definitely, there's sometimes, and I know for a fact it works beautiful, mitzvah chart, sometimes it helps, and things like that, or giving prizes, okay? But you have to know that's still not chinuch, because it's immediate activation. It's like when we throw, for those of us who've been to SeaWorld, right? The dolphin jumps up, and you throw the fish in the mouth, and he's all happy. So now the dolphin feels like he's you didn't do very much. You just kind of give him a prize for what he's doing. It doesn't mean that he changed his inner self. He now believes in what you are raising him as. Doesn't mean you changed his pnimiyut as a person, okay? Because it is still external. A prize in essence is still external. Now again, this is definitely necessary, and sometimes it needs to be done. It doesn't have to be done, but it has to be known how you do it. If you make a mistake, then the prize becomes the ikr, and you completely True story of a child who was going to Tehillim. He's going to Tehillim on a weekly basis, and every time the Rebbe was doing the Tehillim with him, or the Mechanech, whatever it was, right, we're always saying, okay guys, today I buy you the special chocolate crembos, we're getting the really special ones with the little cream on the top, and this time, let's hear everyone do Tehillim together, and everyone's doing it for their 20 minutes, they do 20, 25 minutes, their Tehillim, or half an hour I think it was, no, that's what it was half an hour, etc., and that's what he would do. And this kid went to the Tehillim every week. 1 week he wasn't there, okay, 1 week he wasn't there, and then the second week he didn't come, he wasn't there either. The Rebbe decided to get in touch with the Mechanech, got in touch with this child, and he wanted to know what happened. You were such a consistent boy, you always loved Tehillim. What happened? He said, well, I have to tell you, 1 week I wasn't here because we went to somewhere else. We went to Netanya. Over there, over there. We went to a certain area over there, and over there was a Tehillim also. There was a Tehillim. Okay, so what happened? And over there, the Tehillim, instead of a half an hour, was only 20 minutes. And instead of one krembo, we got two. And the Hagrelah tickets, you get two tickets and not only one ticket. You do one. I said, I'm not interested in your business. He says, he wanted out of this Tehillim. It wasn't worth it. You're cheating me out of my out of what I deserve. It's true. What happened? He said, it's not fair. I'm sitting here doing this. That's called a business. You understand what I'm saying? That story kind of just proves it's a little bit extreme, hopefully extreme story. But that kind of a story kind of like expresses how a prize is be'etzim hafala. It's activation. It's not just real. It's not real chinuch because it's a business transaction. You're doing it in order to do it. Now again, I don't recommend to the Tehillim people not to give prizes because chances are no one's going to come, right? But at the same time, you have to realize where it is. I'll give you an example. Like when I do with my Shabbos, on Shabbos, when I do things with my kids, first of all, they're very interested to do it, be covering themselves. I do each one with their daf kesher. I don't make an esek out of the nuts that I give them. I buy these special nuts from the thing or whatever it is. I don't make an esek. Okay, who wants peanuts or whatever wants the nuts and stuff like that. Talk a day that he's answering the question, I kind of like give him one or let him put in one or them. You don't make a format out of the prize. Let the prize be something in the background. The main thing is the learning, the connection, the relationship you have with the game. And derech agav, you know what derech agav means parenthetically, right? Parenthetic, there's a prize also on the side. Ooh, it makes you feel good. It gives you a good type of feeling. It's like learning with a child. It's like learning with your child. See it? It's like learning with your child. It's close. It's like learning with your child, right? When you learn with a child, you want to make it a good scenario. Get some hot chocolate there, make something beneficial. You want to make him a Pepsi on the side or something like that to make it good. But does that mean he's coming for the good drink? No. You're just making it comfortable to be there. But the prize doesn't become the ikr. That's why I enunciated that. Rebbe made a whole esek out of the krumbo, right? He made the krumbo. We know the Reb Chaim Volozhin, right? Shalol lishma ba lishma is only if I want to come to the lishma. If everyone's focused on the Shalol Lishma, I'm so into the Shalol Lishma, you're never going to come to Lishma. The focus on Lishma gets you from Shalol Lishma to Lishma, and you need to have the Shalol Lishma also. Right? You need to have Shalol Lishma. But don't focus so much on Shalol Lishma, try to get to a yad. You understand? Try to get to a yad. That's where this point comes from. This is the difference between these two activations. I said the two klalim, I think people knew. There was a lot of additions. Just now that I mentioned, there's a certain amount of things. I know it's 9. Let me just add 2 more minutes, and we'll come to a close here. Okay? We'll finish at 9:05. Okay? Chinuch, and this is what we're going to speak about next time. Okay? This is the understanding that we have. When we're speaking about this idea, what we're trying to do here is get to a ya'ad, to a destination. And that is what you have to always have in mind when you are dealing with your children. I'm always doing things for a destination. That is all the difference between chinuch, planting and building. Chinuch and hafalah. All the differences. Am I doing things for something I'm getting there, or am I working on the here and now? The prizes or the punishments, that's just for here and now. I need immediate satisfaction. Immediate satisfaction. I need now. That means that I'm worried about now. Real chinuch is always having in mind, before I do something, or before I say something, or before I show anger to my child, or before maybe even I hit him, before I do something I tell him something, I think, is this going to get to the matara, the ya'ad, the destination that I'm aiming for? Okay? Is that the destination? It's always what you have to do. The focus is always the destination. At one time I had to take a trip to Los Angeles. And I had to deal with a travel agent. You're looking up sites to find out the cheapest ticket to find a trip to Los Angeles, and you find these numbers in the thousands of dollars and things like that. But then, if you look at England, you can get a first class ticket for the same price and go to England. So I said, why don't you just go? I might as well just take the first class ticket. It's much more comfortable, and I can just go to England and get a first class. Why should I sit in the back and coach and go all the way to Los Angeles? Especially my family's there, right? And instead, I could just go to England and take a first class ticket. Well, it makes a lot of sense. I'd rather have a nice, comfortable class. But we all know what's the answer. Because what use is how comfortable the means is. The means can be incredibly comfortable, but if you're going the wrong place, it's useless. It's a waste of time. You're wasting your time. You got to get to your destination, pay the bucks. You got to do what you got to do. So if you decide, and this is what we have to categorize next time, Ezrat Hashem, what our destination is when we are being mechanech, we focus on what we call the ya'ad, the destination. We focus on that thing. Where am I? What am I looking for for my child. So before I do something, I will be makpid, I will go out of my way to make sure that I'm making the right decision here. I won't immediately act and react to the way I decide to do things. You understand? And it changes your whole perspective of how you act. The only difference, and I'm literally, if I could say it every shiur, we have 8 shiur, I might say it every shiur. The only difference between a mechanech and not a mechanech, someone who went to shiurim a little bit, or was there someone, the only difference is one who thinks and one who just acts and reacts. One who thinks, he makes a cheshbon before he says something, and one who doesn't. We don't always do it. You're not going to do it all the time. We have too many things in our head. Everybody here has a job, or is an avrech, or is doing something. I know we're all busy. But that is the ya'ad, that is the destination that we're working for. To think before I immediately react, not everything. Just because the glass spilled doesn't mean immediately I have to scream, because today I happen to have sponge, and yesterday it wasn't sponge, so I won't be upset. Okay, we'll give more examples next time. But all the difference between real chinuch and fake chinuch and a person who's not a mechanech is a person who thinks twice before he says something. Is this am I accomplishing my task? Am I busy with a plane trip, with a bus ride, or am I focusing on where is this going to lead to? What am I getting to? What am I going to get out of it? That is all the difference in the world. That makes the havdel between a person who cares and doesn't care. And that makes a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, a difference about the totza'ot we see in our children. Okay? The outcome that we will see in our children. All right? Bezrat Hashem, next time we'll focus on that. We'll give a number of like 10 examples of this last point that I just spoke about. All right?
If anybody hasn't registered, please let me know in your email if you want any updates or any changes to schedule.
I'm going to give emails just reminding when the women